Fab, thanks, Natalie. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, you've got to watch my face, unfortunately, on the screen. So when that comes to YouTube, I'm not sure how that translates. Good afternoon. Welcome to this whistle stop tour this afternoon. We're only together for about half an hour. We're going to be looking at transitions today. So. If I can ask you to have a mobile phone or a device that you can scan a QR code with handy, that would be really good because we're going to have a little look at a Mentimeter very shortly, which I've used in the past, which are it's quite a good way of recording what's been said, so we can send those out with a slide pack a little bit later on. So, transitions through the day. I hope that's what you're here for. We're looking at it's part of a series of transition workshops that we're going to be doing. This is session one today, and then session two is coming up on July the 2nd. And we're thinking today more about transitions through the day and how we can maybe reduce some of the pressure on transitions, but also how we can support some of the transitions. Now, I apologize this afternoon. I'm in a classroom because the internet wasn't very good in my little office that I work from. So if you do hear any bangs, clashes or anything, we've got after school club somewhere else in the building. So I apologize for that. So just a little quick introduction from me. My name's Martin Cumming. It's lovely to have you all with us this afternoon. I'm the assistant head teacher and inclusion leader at St Paul's Nursery School here in York. My background's primary education, and for the last 7 years, I've been working here at St Paul's Nursery School, especially around working with children with additional needs. And we also do a lot of outreach within the city to help support other settings as well. If you bear with me a second. So, the objectives for today's session. Our objectives this afternoon are to identify the transition points that occur throughout the day, thinking about how we manage those and what we could do to scaffold a little bit of support into those. We're also going to be looking at identifying why these might be challenging for some children, especially those children who may have additional needs or sensory differences, that trying to reduce the amount of transitions that we do throughout a day could help them to have a more successful day in nursery and in setting. I'm also thinking about how we can support these transitions throughout the day. And we're also thinking about how we can reduce the amount of transitions that we're doing. The amount of transitions, I think, is key because we have, I think, from my own setting here, we have at times you feel like you're transitioning quite a lot of the day. We've had some visitors this afternoon, and we're having a conversation about transitions. She might be on the call this afternoon, actually. And we were just saying about sometimes it feels like you're going between group time, then you're going to snack and things like that. How can we reduce that throughout our day within settings? So, focusing on today, we're thinking about in-setting transitions. So we're focusing on the transitions that we make within our settings through the day, rather than thinking about those transitions to a new setting. So, for example, between nursery and going into reception, or going between rooms, from say a baby room to a toddler room. We're looking at that today. We're going to be thinking a little bit more in June about the transitions between settings and how we can model and how we can support that, which is, really important to be able to do, and make it as smooth as possible for the children that we've got in our settings who are leaving us in July or September, depending on whether you're term time only or all year round. We'll be looking at that in greater depth in June. So, what I'd like us to do is, on your screen, you should see a gigantic QR code. If you haven't got access to a camera to take a photo of that QR code, if you could go to menti.com in your browser And when you go to mentor.com, you should find yourself a question. And the first question, I'm going to ask two questions this afternoon. The first question that I'm going to ask you is, can you name some transitions that children make throughout their school day or their nursery day? Okay, I'm going to give you just a minute just to be able to scan that. And then I'm going to switch screens and I'm going to go to Menti. So if you can just, there we go. When I switch round, don't panic. You will get the QR code when I go to Menti. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And then I am going to share my other screen, which should be, bear with me a second. So let's just press start presentation and that should work. Little bit of delay. I'm sorry. My internet here in York today is rubbish. So how do you gone back. There we go. Fantastic. Name some transitions that children make throughout the day. There's always a technical glitch at some point. So inside to outside, fantastic, super. Although it's been a beautiful sunny day here today in York, so we've had a lot of people just being outside and wanting to play outside. Lunchtime, brilliant. So it might be between learning in the morning and coming to lunch in the afternoon. That's right. Yeah, or either end of the lunchtime. You might be going to a different location for that. You might be going somewhere else within the building. Snack time, lunchtime, story time, math sessions, phonics sessions, RE sessions, etc. Yeah, absolutely. You might be moving around through all of those. Leaving parents, really, really important one, and actually a really significant one to some children. Yes, group time, story time, singing, lunchtime, etc. Fantastic, thank you. Meal times, the changing play, outdoor, indoor play, pick up, drop off times. Thank you. Snack, singing, story, meal times. Fantastic, thank you. Separation from parents again. Yes, we'll have a little look at that a little bit closely in a second. Inside to outside, from playing to meal times, toileting, nappy changes, big pinch point in the day sometimes. Especially, you might have seen we're doing a lot of work in York at the moment about toilet training and things, but we've got a lot of 2-year-olds and a lot of children with additional needs here in sight. So a lot of nappy changes throughout the day. One of my colleagues nodding as they walk past me about nappy changes. Indoor play to outdoor play. Yeah, fantastic. Super. Snack time, story time, excursions and trips out. Absolutely. If you're leaving where you are to go out on a trip or to go somewhere else. Fantastic. All different types of transitions that children are making throughout the day. And if you name them and label them, how many times that they have to transition through the day, there's a huge amount. So my next slide, while we're on Menti, just thought about thinking about how do we actually mark key transitions through the day? How do you support transition from one of those? Think about the one that you might have just put into the Menti in question 1. Think about what do you do or how do you mark that key transition throughout the day? So, for example, one of us in our mainstream setting, we might use a shaker if we're outside to get the children's attention. Brilliant. Now next boards for the whole setting. That's brilliant if you're using them for the whole setting. Thank you for that. That's great. You're kind of saying what I'm going to say later. Visual timetables, brilliant. We say team stop to gain children's attention to explain the next thing. Super. Staff support children to move from one activity to another. Countdown song, singing rhyme, brilliant. Music's really important. When I asked my boss Claire to have a little look through my slides, she said, "You've forgot about music." So I've not put it in, but yes, thank you for raising that. Singing is a great one. Sing a song to call the children together. Fantastic. We have one to begin and end our group times. Now and next board, widget sound timers, electronic countdown. Fantastic, super. Same routine, uh, sounds for tidy up time. Yeah, key person, same routine, picture clues, warning that it's going to happen, items of reference. Fantastic. You're all coming up with some suggestions that I'm going to be talking about in a little bit, which is fantastic. I'm hoping I'm not preaching to the converted here, though. I'll just see if there's any more that pop through there. No, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing those. What I'll do at the end of the presentation is that gets saved and I can make those into slides and add those to the end of the presentation, which Natalie will send out to those of you who are here with us today. So I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint if I can make this work. I'm getting a little bit better at this, Natalie. So I'm getting faster, although I've gone to the wrong slide. So there we go. My little box along the bottom is in the wrong place, but if you bear with me, there we go. So these are the ones that I thought of for transitions throughout the day. So I was thinking about how many we do. So I thought about my day in nursery as a child, and I then thought, how many times do I have to change adult or have to change location within setting? So this was just a whistle-stop tour when I was going. As it says at the bottom, the list goes on. So, as somebody mentioned, parents to breakfast club or parents to nursery. Breakfast club to nursery. So you've already got parents to breakfast club to nursery. That's two transitions already. And you've already had transitions at home, brushing your teeth, getting in the car to come to nursery, getting on your scooter, getting into the pushchair. Those are transitions as well. Play to group time to play, and play to washing hands and getting ready for snack, snack to play to toilet, toilet to washing hands, play to the lunch hall, and that's just a morning. And that doesn't include all of those different transitions as somebody brought up, inside to outside. They may be wanting to transition from playground into a working space within inside your setting. There's a lot of change that a child has to go through in a day. And I think it's thinking smartly on how we support those children, especially from an SEND point of perspective, and also how we model that to children and how we reduce the load, that cognitive load on the children as we go through that day. So when I was looking at putting this together, Twinkle had a really brilliant handout about different types of transition. And actually, there was different transitions that I hadn't actually thought of. Today, we're going to look at that physical and emotional transition, but there's other types of transitions as well that a child might make within a week or within the time that they're with you. So this afternoon, we're thinking about physical transition between places and activities, but also a little bit of emotional transition as well. So between people, parents to nursery and vice versa. Because actually, sometimes we've got to be mindful that nursery might be a child's safe space. It might not actually be home as the safe space. So actually leaving nursery at the end of the day might actually be traumatic for some children. So we have to think about, we're not going to delve too much deeply into that this afternoon as we've only got 15 minutes left and it's a whistle stop tour, but that might be something that we talk about later on about emotional regulation and some of those aspects of PSED. We've then also got physiological transition, and this is something that I hadn't really thought about before, but actually my daughter and my middle daughter, she's in year 6 at the moment, and actually she has a diagnosis of autism and she's also dyslexic. But one of the things that she's just had to start getting used to is wearing glasses, and that's become quite a big thing for her because actually you're not used to something on your face. And if you're quite sensory driven, then actually wearing glasses could be a big deal. So actually you've got to think about that. We'll think about that maybe at a different time, but you've got to be mindful of that. You might have some children who have to wear some form of hearing aid, or they might have to use a walker for the first time and things like that. There are lots of different physiological transitions as well. And then we're also thinking about periods of sickness. So if a child is off for a long period of time. But then also there's an intellectual transition as well, which is between settings, which we're talking about later on in the term, and also between stages, so nursery to reception. Um, and you might even have, might have some reception teachers in here, reception to key stage one, which actually is quite a big deal as well, depending on how play-based your year one is. So thinking then about the emotional side of transition, it's that importance of feeling known. And I thought this was quite a nice phrase because actually feeling known is quite important to small people, isn't it? They might come in, they might be feeling a little bit buzzy, they might be feeling a little bit upset, their emotional regulation might not be there, but actually there's that importance of feeling known, that somebody identifies you as their person. Because they might have just left mum and dad or granny or granddad, and they might just been left, and they've got this, if they've just started with you, they've got this thing of coming into a big setting that they might not have been in before, a new setting. Our setting's just moved, so we've got this brand new, newly decorated new parts of building and things like that our children have never been to before. And I've got to say the resilience of the children has been brilliant, but actually some children have probably found that quite difficult, about the fact that this is a new space. And some children get anxiety, and some children might have that separation anxiety and attachment difficulties as well. And we've got to think about how we support emotionally those children. So you might want to think about using transition objects into setting, that known, that familiar. So allowing children to bring something familiar in. So that might be bringing a teddy in. And that's not to say that they need to keep that teddy all day, but that teddy might be there for just for that emotional security blanket. You might have a blanket. We've got one little girl who's just started with us, and her blanket just smells of like it's gorgeous. It smells of fabric conditioner, but it's just that sense of home, that sense of smell that she's used to. And actually, she uses that for her nap time, and that has been really beneficial for her because that gives her that comfort, that gives her that feeling of security. You might have a favorite toy, might not be a teddy. Got a little lad in one of our classes that has to bring Spider-Man every day. Sometimes there's four spider people, but he loves that, and that gets him in. And he always keeps them on. He always puts them on a chair just before he goes into the classroom, and he knows that that's where they'll be at the end of the day before he goes home. But it's just that little bit of security that that child needs. And it's also, which I think you could be from two different camps on this one, allowing parents into your room for handover. Some settings prefer parents drop off at the door. Some parents prefer parents to be allowed into setting and hand over to a familiar adult there. Um, it's thinking about what's best for your children. It's not always it's thinking outside the box sometimes, because you might be a setting that says no at the door, but actually for certain children, allowing them to be dropped off inside might, even if it's just inside the doorway, that might be something that they need to feel secure in your setting. And this brings us on to the role of the key worker. Just checking my time. So the role of the key worker, as we know, early years foundation stage, statutory framework 2025. The page number's off the bottom there, but if you want to make a note, it's on page 30. So the role of the key person, and I'll just read this to you. It says, each child must be assigned a key person. Their role is to help ensure that every child's care is tailored to meet their individual needs, to help the child become familiar with the setting, offer a settled relationship for the child, and build a relationship with their parents and or carers. So it's not just about with the child, it's about the parents as well. Because remember, we're there for the whole family, but also the parents and carers might be the ones with the separation anxiety. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to have that, be mindful of that. And they should also help families engage with more specialist support if appropriate. So if you needed to go down speech language therapy or you need to go down healthy child service, etc., you're there to support them. But this is sort of my little caveat on that. And I completely and utterly believe in the role of the key person and the key worker. But sometimes I think we allocate, and this is the person that they're going to go to. But actually, sometimes a child has other things in mind. Sometimes a child actually might prefer a different adult. And I think sometimes it's being mindful of that. Because creating a strong bond with a familiar adult who's not their parent or carer, it's a big step for children. And I think don't be afraid not to allocate a key worker straight away. Obviously, have somebody who's going to be there to um, help support the family and the child. But actually, we might have a child that goes to somebody else who's not their key worker, and that person might be actually better suited because that child has that or is wanting to form that connection with them. Um, Obviously, staffing, etc., that can't always be the case, but it's just being mindful of maybe sometimes changing the way that we're approaching things and changing the way that we think. So next thing is about how we support and mark transitions. So the question that I asked you before is how do we mark those transitions through the day? So I think with my sort of Senko hat on, my inclusion leader hat on, I think about the children who struggle most with that, maybe the children with the additional needs, but not always. Um, but it's making sure that they may have extra support with transitions throughout the day. So maybe giving a warning of what is to come and help support this. As somebody put on the Mentimeter, they use a whole now and next approach, which I think is brilliant if you're using that for the whole setting. That kind of comes down from a visual timetable, doesn't it? It's a reduction of that visual timetable. And if you're using a visual cue as well, always support it with a verbal cue because you're always wanting to develop language and support language. Like when you're using Makaton, if you're using Makaton to help with support, you're always using verbalizations with your Makaton sign. Making as few transitions that we can do as possible, um, and thinking about how to scaffold support in setting. We were having this conversation this afternoon with one of our colleagues from out of area. We were just having a chat about when they came to have a look around. And we were talking about the fact that actually reducing the amount of transition sometimes is reducing that workload, that cognitive load on the children. And actually that just might make their day go a little bit better. So here are some examples. I'm a little aware of time. We've got about 5 minutes left. So thinking about how we scaffold, how we support. So we've got visual timetables. I've shared some of these before in past training, but thinking about what visual timetable and how you use your visual timetable. Different camps say whether you go horizontal or whether you go vertical. I don't mind, but from my perspective, if you're supporting a child using a visual timetable, then you should use it consistently, and there should be a consistent approach with that. And you're using that to scaffold and model what's happening through the day. So, for example, the one on the left here, we've got a fairly basic rundown of the day. It doesn't have the small transitions in there, but it does have some of those big things that you might be doing. So starting the day outside, activity, snack, toilet, nappy outside. When you're finished, take it off, gives the children a sense of time and a sense of something that's passing. Especially those children, we've got a few new starters. We've got 17 new starters started this week, and we've got some children who really struggle with the when's my mummy coming to collect me, and that's at like 9:30 in the morning, and they've got to go until 6 o'clock when they're coming after school club. So we're thinking about how we break that down. We use a visual representation, a visual timetable as such when we're working through our group time, so children know where we're up to. So we might do hello song, names, name cards, so the children are recognizing the names, our signs of the week, what the topic is that we're doing, our plan do review, and then what's happening at the end. And then that's just a screenshot from some of the ideas that you can get, say, from Twinkle and other places that you can get visual timetables. If you do have some really good examples of visual timetables or the visual timetables that you use in your setting, Would you mind, my email address is at the end, would you mind sending me some information, just a picture of it? Obviously, no children's pictures on there at all, but if you can send me pictures of how you do a transition through the day with visual timetables, that would be great because that would be great for some training that I want to pull together for later on in the year. So when we're using a visual timetable, we might then want to break that down further into small steps. Like somebody said before, now and next approach. So we've got a now and next board here. There's a big debate. Do we use now and next? Do we use first and then? Which one to use? People, depends on which camp again you're in. People think that now and next is more neuro affirming. But I think to tell you the truth, as long as you're not putting the pressure on and you're giving a kind of a choice in there as well. Now and next for me works best, but there we go. But there's nothing conclusive. I did do a big search last night online when I was thinking about this, and there's nothing conclusive online that I can find. If you have any research or anything behind now and next and first and then, please again send it to me because I'll be interested to read that. But it's about reducing demands and helping support and scaffold. Um, I'm not sure if you've seen this lady before. She's called Jordan. She is a special needs class educator, I think down in Devon. Um, Jordan, if you do watch this recording, I'm sorry if it's Cornwall, but she's got a brilliant website called sensoryclassroom.org. And they use these little, you can get these, you can buy these. I'm not on commission. Little now next cards, and they've got like little packets behind them, so you've got your transition cards through the day. As you can see over her shoulder, she's got visual cues there to use, but also she's using those on her now next lanyard there. But a really good way of, if you're outside and you're nowhere near the visual timetable, you've got that to hand. You can help facilitate that transition. We've then got using visuals as, start off with objects of reference if you've got children who need that. I've got a YouTube link on the next slide. Excellent practitioner, which I will share in a second. You might want to use photos in transitions because photos are easier to understand than pictures. So we've got some widget symbols here. Widget, brilliant website if you've got it to help make visuals. If you've not seen it, have a look. Again, linked at the end of the presentation. Use those to help with transition. All of our staff, if I can find my lanyard, all of our staff have visual lanyards, visuals on their lanyard, which they can use to mark transitions, which are really helpful to use because you can use those wherever you are within the building. We've got some objects of reference pictures here. And then you might want to, children, if you're working with older children, so you're working in reception into Key Stage 1, you might want to use the widget symbols rather than actual photos of things that you've got in your setting. Again, I've got a clip here for those people who aren't sort of like up to you're not quite sure about how to use objects of reference. This YouTube clip, it's about 6 minutes long. Bryony Rust, who is known as Salt by the Sea, that's her company. She lives down south near Brighton, I think. Absolutely brilliant. I've used this in training before. A really, really super YouTube clip just about how to use objects of reference and how to introduce them and a better understanding of them. Really recommend it. It's about 6 minutes long. She's got other YouTube clips as well, but really, really recommend you having a little look. And then finally, as I'm aware that we've going to run about 2 minutes over, I do apologize, but we're then thinking about reducing demands. Can we reduce the amount of transitions that we have during the day? Having that conversation with a practitioner this afternoon, we were talking about, does the setting or your room, do you need to tidy up at the end of the morning? Or can you actually just transition to lunchtime? So you're not having to do an extra transition into tidying up. And then actually that gives the children that opportunity to come back to their play after they've had their snack or had their lunch, etc. Does the setting always have to look like a showroom setting? Can you just leave it? So as long as it's safe, obviously, but can you just leave like the bricks out if children can then come back to use them, Obviously, if you're closing a room for the rest of the day, then maybe not. Children can then come back to doing what they want to do. Making transitions fun, like some of you have said. Are we singing to make when we're lining up? Are we singing to transition between different aspects of the day? Sorry, we've got a little bit of noise in the background there. If a child has additional needs or extra support, do you have an adult that can help with that? And is it a consistent person who helps with that transition? And are they doing that in a consistent way? And interventions. When you're doing interventions, for example, we do a lot of speech and language intervention. We've got quite a few children who are under speech and language therapy care, or we have children when we've done welcome assessments, etc. Can interventions be carried out just in an area of provision rather than taking them to somewhere else? Can the adult, you as a practitioner, go to the child rather than the child having to come to you to do the work? Can you do group time outside if you're already outside? Obviously, wherever your resources are for your session, but thinking about it's sometimes just thinking outside the box. It might take you out of your comfort zone. I know sometimes I'm out of my comfort zone thinking, oh, okay, I've got 8 children with additional needs and we're going to do group time outside because actually that's the best place. But one of our practitioners the other day just decided to get the parachute out and do a group game activity. And actually, all she needed to do was she got the parachute out and she started singing, and all of the children flocked to her. That was making the transition fun, but it was also getting them to come and do an activity, to move their play on. So that's almost me finished. So just some really useful resources. I haven't got it here with me because I've had to move into another room, but Birth to Five, there's a really great 3 5-minute read article on supporting transitions within the day and across setting. If the link doesn't work, I have checked that the link does work, but if you can't make it work, just put Birth to Five and transitions in, take you straight to that part of the website. Sensoryclassroom.org, got some really good ideas and some useful tools to support transitions, especially for children with ASC diagnosis. And also, as I say about this all the time, Widget Online. Widget Online is a brilliant, useful resource. If you don't have it, then I really recommend a subscription because it's really good. Again, not on commission. And that just leads me to say a really big thank you. This is my email address. It'll be on the end of the slides. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, if you've got anything that you want to discuss, fancy a phone call and a chat and a natter about transitions, or if you've got need any support with that, we have a Senko network as well as part of the Stronger Practice Hub, which Natalie, I believe, sent out a newsletter. I got mine yesterday, I think it was. So you should have a newsletter that has all the dates and things of that. But I'm very welcome to have a chat to anybody if they want to. So I should say that, Natalie, if you want to stop recording there,